Hey friends, thanks so much for stopping by. Today, I'm making 3 different types of Dollar Tree Valentine's Day wreath DIYs. I'm starting my project by using this 12-inch heart from the Dollar Tree, and it comes with a hanging metal heart that I'm removing, and I'm going to be working on the back. I removed the sticker and then the hanger. I'm using white acrylic paint, but you can use any color that you'd like. And now I'm going to give my heart 2 coats. I'm adding an accent to the front of my heart, and I'm using 6 of the wooden Dollar Tree skewers. I'm using my khaki acrylic paint, and once again, you can use any color that you'd like, and I'm just going to give all 6 of them a complete coat. So now that I have all my pieces dry, I'm going to be adding the skewers to the heart, but before I do, I need to use my ruler and measure the distance across the heart. I want them to be evenly spaced, so I'm measuring them at the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, and the 11-inch mark. Now that I have the spacing laid out, I'm going to take each of my skewers and lay them on the pencil markings. And now I'm using my pencil and I'm just marking the ends of the skewers where they reach the end of the heart. When I'm done, I'm then using my clippers and I'm clipping each of the skewers on my pencil mark. Some of the ends are a little sharp from being cut, so I'm just going to use my sandpaper and file them down. So once I'm done, and to attach them into place, I'm going to use my E6000. I'm running a line of glue on the bottom of the skewer and then just attaching it into place. I think you could use any type of glue for this, probably like an Aleene's or an Elmer's glue would attach them into place. I wouldn't suggest using a glue gun because you don't want any of it to kind of ooze out under the skewers. I wanted to share with you today that I am participating in my monthly collab group that's hosted by my sweet friend Liana from Liana DIY. Our guest host this month is Tracy from Country Charm by Tracy. You can check out the hosts along with the amazing playlist. I'll have it linked below in my description. If you're enjoying my videos so far, please consider clicking that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. I'm going to paint this 4.5-inch glass mason jar and actually had pizza sauce in it that I picked up at Target, but if you don't have anything this size, you can always use something a little larger. I'm going to paint it with some homemade chalk paint, and I'm starting out with about a 1/4 teaspoon of pink acrylic paint. I'm then adding in roughly about a tablespoon of my white acrylic paint. Everyone seems to make their chalk paint just a little bit different, and I'm going to be adding in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Then all that's left to do is give it a good mixing. With my jar washed and completely dry, I'm giving it a coat of my chalk paint. For this heart DIY, I wanted really soft, subtle colors, and that's why I went with such a light pink. Now that it's dry, I'm going to be attaching it to the heart, and I'm using a zip tie. I'm just making sure that it's long enough to wrap around the top of the jar and to go through the heart. I'm adding a dot of hot glue to the front of the jar, and then I'm adding on some E6000. The glue will help anchor the zip tie, and the E6000 will help keep it permanently in place. To hide the zip tie, I'm going to be using some of this polished hemp, but you can use some jute or anything that you have on hand. I turned the jar over, and at the top I added a dot of hot glue, and I attached the end of the hemp. To help hold it all in place, I just added some E6000, and then I wrapped the hemp around the top. I just continued adding on my E6000 and wrapping around the hemp And when I came to the zip tie, I just added my E6000 on there as well, and then just covered it with the hemp. Before I add my two pieces together, I cut about 30 inches of hemp as my hanger. I have this really sweet vintage key that was given to me a long time ago. I thought I would add that on as a neat little accent. I slipped the end of the hemp through one of the original holes, and I just tied a couple of knots in the back. I then slipped on the key and added the other end through the hole and tied a couple of knots on that as well. I then cut off the extra ends and I added some E6000 under the knots to help hold the hanger in place. To add my jar to the front of the heart, I decided where I wanted it to be. I marked it and I drilled 2 holes. I made sure to make one hole a little bit bigger to accommodate the larger end of the zip tie. I then pushed the ends of the zip ties through the holes and I pulled it tightly in the back. Once it was in place, I then cut away the excess end. This step is completely optional. I just removed the little bow from the Be Mine sign that had originally come with my heart, and I added it with some hot glue onto the front of my jar. To finish up, I just added in some pretty spring flowers from the Dollar Tree, and with that, my hanging Valentine's Day heart is complete. I'm starting my Hello Valentine's sign by using a 12-inch wooden circle from the Dollar Tree. I removed the hanger and using my white acrylic paint, I gave the front a complete coat. I'm adding an accent to my sign, and this step is completely optional. I used my ruler and I measured out a 3-inch stripe. Then, using my gray acrylic paint, I just filled in between the lines. Once the stripe had completely dried, I then used my Mod Podge and I gave it a complete coat. When it had dried, I then cut a 30-inch piece from my polished hemp. I then pushed both ends through the holes. I tied knots to make my hanger. I'm adding the phrase Hello Valentine to my sign, and I printed out the words on my Cricut, but if you don't have a Cricut, you can always use some stickers from Michael's or the Dollar Tree. I placed the word hello on my top stripe and the word Valentine on my bottom. I'm adding on some heart accents, and I'm using some of these scatter hearts from the Dollar Tree, as well as one of their heart stickers. I decided where I wanted them to be, and then I centered the large heart sticker on the bottom. To attach the sparkly scatter hearts, I'm using my E6000 and I'm just placing some on the back and then attaching the hearts to my sign. I chose to add mine in these places, but there's no right place or wrong place. You just attach them wherever you like. I'm going to attach a bow to the top of my Valentine's sign wreath, and let me tell you, the ribbon selection at my Dollar Tree definitely was slim pickings this year. This pretty heart ribbon was pretty much all I could get my hands on this year, so I'm using this along with my bow maker to make my bow. I gave myself 2 6-inch tails and 4 5-inch loops, and then I attached my bow together with a piece of floral wire. Once I had it attached together, I then fluffed out the loops. I cut a piece of the heart ribbon about 3 inches in length. I turned it over and added some hot glue and then folded one of the edges over. And then I added some more hot glue and I folded over the other edge. I then wrapped it around the center of my bow and I hot glued it together in the back. Now that my bow is complete, I'm going to dovetail the ends, which is super easy. You just fold the ribbon in half and cut away at an angle. I removed the excess floral wire in the back, and then using my glue gun, I attached it to the top of my wreath sign. I'm adding a little greenery by using these 2 sprigs of Dollar Tree ivy, and you can pretty much use any type of greenery that you have on hand. I added a little hot glue under my bow, and then I just tucked the ivy in place. To finish up, I'm adding a red and a pink scatter heart under my bow. Now that I'm done, my Hello Valentine wreath sign is ready to hang. To make my pink hydrangea heart wreath, I'm starting with the heart wreath form from the Dollar Tree. To wrap the form, I'm using this pretty pink burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using 1 roll plus a small strip from the other. I'm attaching the burlap by adding some hot glue to the bottom supports on the form. After my first piece is in place, I'm just continuing to add some hot glue on the form and then wrapping my burlap around the heart. The reason I'm wrapping my heart is to give me a base to attach my flowers to. If you can't find this pink burlap at your Dollar Tree, not to worry, just use anything you have on hand that will match the flowers that you're adding onto your heart. I'm making my wreath out of pink hydrangeas that I found at the Dollar Tree, but you can use any flowers that you'd like. I'm using 11 bunches, and I removed the flower clusters from the main stem. They all have a longer stem on the bottom, and this kind of makes it a little more difficult to attach them to the burlap, so I'm just using my scissors and cutting them short. I'm starting to attach them to the form by adding on some hot glue and then placing the ends of the flowers in the hot glue and holding them in place for about 20 seconds. Once they set up, I'm then adding some more hot glue and some more flowers, and I'm working my way around the outside of the heart. The reason I'm holding my flowers in place for about 20 seconds or so is because that's how long it takes the hot glue to cool down and the flowers to set up in place. And now that I have the outside complete with flowers, I'm going to follow the exact same instructions and start working on the inside. Now that all my flowers are attached, I'm going to add on a hanger, and I'm using this pretty pink and white gingham ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I cut a 24-inch piece of ribbon, and then I hot glued them to the back of my heart, making sure that they were centered evenly. I then cut 2 3-inch tabs of the same ribbon, and I hot glued them in the opposite direction to help give my hanger a little extra support. To add a bow to the top of my hanger, I'm giving myself about 6-inch tails, and then I'm just making a simple bow. I'm adding some hot glue to the point of my hanger and then attaching the bow in place. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Please be sure to check the playlist below. And if you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I hope you all have an awesome day, and I will see you very soon. Bye, everybody!